Welcome to the podcast. My name is Father Bill W. I'm an Episcopal priest, also in long-term recovery, have had the gift of sobriety since December the 27th of 1972. And purpose of these podcasts is to go deeper into the spirituality, the history, the psychology of the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm kind of big on this thing called two-way prayer. If you haven't done so, please go to our website. It's by the same name, TWO, Two-Way Prayer, and watch the video and download the handouts there. It's a form of prayer that they did in the early days of Alcoholics Anonymous, and was brought over from the Oxford group. But somehow along the way, it got lost. Well, I started doing that thing about, 32, 33 years ago now. Totally turned my program around, changed it very dramatically. And I would encourage anyone who's kind of stuck at a plateau to give that thing a 30-day trial and see if it doesn't put the juice back into your recovery. I say that by way of introduction because part of the two-way prayer practice is actually part of a larger component known as a morning quiet time. And what is intended there is to spend about 30, 40, maybe 60 minutes in quiet, in connecting with the great reality within, as we call it in the big book. It's got different components. One of them is a reading component. So we're asked to find a book that speaks to us, that resonates with our souls, takes us deeper on the spiritual journey. And one book that I've recommended often is a book titled A Testament of Devotion. The author is Thomas R. Kelly. It's a short book. It's actually a series of 4 or 5 talks that he gave towards the end of his life. They're deep, they're mystical, they're spiritual. Kelly was a mystic, and you know, to describe the great reality within, it's difficult, probably impossible. But some people come close, and Kelly is one of those. So I encourage people to get a copy, maybe read a page, 2 pages at the most, and then sit there in quiet reflection and then do your two-way prayer. So we're going to go through his book. Did the introduction in the last episode. So if you want more info on Kelly, you can get it there. But this chapter, his first chapter, is titled The Light Within. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but actually we're just going to go through about 2 pages. But there are some beautiful, beautiful quotes that I want to share with you. The first one, we're going to spend the most time on that. Then we'll look at 2 or 3 others. But this one, man, it just speaks to me. I probably read it 2 or 3 dozen times, and each time takes me a little bit deeper into it. So let me go ahead and get started without any further explanations here. I'm going to read it one time, and then I'm going to go back and we're going to break it down sentence by sentence, okay? So listen up out there. Kelly writes, "Deep within us all, there is an amazing inner sanctuary of the soul, a holy place, a divine center, a speaking voice to which we may continuously return. Eternity is at our hearts, pressing upon our time-torn lives, warming us with intimations of an astounding destiny, calling us home onto itself. Yielding to these persuasions, gladly committing ourselves in body and soul, utterly and completely to the light within, is the beginning of true life. It is a dynamic center, a creative life that presses to birth within us. It is a light within which illumines the face of God and casts new shadows and new glories upon the face of men. It is a seed stirring to life if we do not choke it. It is the Shekinah of the soul, presence in the midst. Here is the slumbering Christ, stirring to be awakened, to become the soul we clothe in earthly form and action, and he is within us all. I might copy that and put it in the show notes. Don't get a copy of the book. Just copy that one down and take it to your two-way prayer. Take it to your morning devotion. Let's go through it line by line because I think it's got a lot to say to us. So here's the first one. Deep within us all, there is an amazing inner sanctuary of the soul. The great reality is within. You know, we tend to look for God out there. Never going to find God out there. The place to begin is in here. That's where you will find God, an amazing sanctuary of the soul, a holy place. When we encounter the great reality within, the divine within, you're going to feel holiness. You're going to feel you're in the presence of the divine. All right. He calls it a divine center, a speaking voice. Well, now there's a line. And those of you who are doing two-way prayer, that ought to jump out at us. A speaking voice. It wants to be in communication with us. It has work for us to do. And we need to be communicating with it to find out what that work is. All right. What is our guidance? Two-way prayer brings the 11th step to life, So a speaking voice to which we may continuously return. Establishing a relationship with this inner voice, this inner presence. Just finished writing a chapter for the book I'm working on two-way prayer. And I'm digging deeper into Carl Jung and his ideas of the inner life. And he talks about there being two centers of consciousness. One is the ego center, but the other is the divine center within us. Jung called it the greater self, the greater personality. And we have business with it, and it has business with us. And if we're just staying with limited consciousness and not accessing the deeper consciousness that is within each of us, we're not really living. And I think Kelly is saying the exact same thing, coming at it a little bit differently. Jung came at it psychologically, scientifically. Kelly comes at it spiritually, mystically. But if you boil the two writers down, they're saying very close to the same thing. Now he's going to try to describe a little bit what this inner presence is like. He says, eternity is at our hearts, pressing upon our time-torn lives, warming us with intimations of an astounding destiny, calling us home into itself. Eternity is at our hearts, pressing, pushing, pulling at what? At our time-torn lives. So we're living this ego life. And we got to do that. I mean, that's one of the things we are here to do. We are born in time. We're in our bodies, and our bodies have work to do. But if we just remain in our bodies and don't make this inner connection, all right, then our lives are going to be, as he says, time torn. Always so much to do, but never really getting anywhere. Warming us with intimations of an astounding destiny. We're meant for more than this. Getting sober is just the beginning. It's the start of a new life, a life that is going to access a lot more than just not drinking or not drugging. It's going to put me into relationship with this divine presence. And I'm going to begin to establish a relationship that I can return to over and over. He says it's calling us home. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to. They say, when I'm doing the two-way prayer, when I'm sitting there in my morning quiet time, I feel so connected. I feel home. One woman described it as crawling up into God's lap, where she feels comforted, safe. And then we go out into the world. We draw strength, meaning, purpose from that connection, and then we carry it out into the world. But you got to go there to get it. And if you try to stay there, you're not going to be able to. We're meant to carry it out into the world. So we go, we carry, we go and receive, and then we transport it out to others. Yielding to these persuasions, gladly committing ourselves in body and soul, utterly and completely to the light within, is the beginning of true life. Step 6 and 7, letting go of everything that stands in the way of my relationship with the light. And trust me, there's a lot, but we've got to begin somewhere. And as we begin, with alcohol, with drugs, with food, whatever the addiction may be, that's the start. And it's a necessary start, but it's only the start. And I can't look on these letting go of other things as a burden, because what it really is getting stuff out of the way so the relationship can come to fruition, can be fulfilled, so that the presence of the light, of the divine within, I'm in constant contact with it. That's what a mystic is. See, and I said this last time, but I'm convinced alcoholics, addicts, many of us are misplaced mystics, longing for this, looking for this, just looking in the wrong places. Okay? It is a dynamic center. Dynamic, it's moving. A creative life, one that presses to birth within us. I have a need for God. I'm convinced of that in recovery. But God has a need for me. Now, that doesn't get said very much. But God has a need for each and every one of us to do what? To manifest in us, to take up residence in us, so that we can be God's hands and feet and eyes. And the more of us, little ego us, that we're able to get out of the way, the more that God is able to manifest in us and through us. I don't manifest a hell of a lot of God. I'm aware of that. But I have met some people who genuinely do. And to be in their presence is to be changed. It's to be touched. It's to be, well, you see it. You see it manifested. I remember I was in Atlanta. I was about 4 or 5 years sober. Chuck Chamberlain, an old-time AA guy, came and gave a talk there. And I swear to God, when he came up to the podium, I could see a light. It wasn't a physical light, but it was something emanating from deep within him. It was something that he had that I knew damn well I did not have, but I wanted what he had. And it wasn't to shine. It was to be at peace to the level that guy was at. And I've had several people like that in my life. Shining lights. You'll get thoughts like that in your two-way prayer. They call them luminous thoughts. That's what the Oxford group people used to call luminous thoughts. They have a light around them. That when I'm in the presence of these thoughts, when they're running through my mind, boy, I come to new life, new meaning, new purpose. I'm changed. And that's what this whole deal is about. He goes on to say, it is a light within which illumines the face of God and casts new shadows and new glories upon the face of men. So into a prayer, in centering prayer, in moments of great service and great love, I'm not saying two-way prayer is the only way to get there, but when the veil if you will, when the veil is lifted and the things that separate me from God and that separate me from you and that separate me from my deepest and truest self, my soul, when those veils are lifted, I'm in the presence of God. But it says something else there in that sentence, doesn't it? And cast new shadows on the face of men. When you're in that presence or aware of that love within, you also become aware of the darkness within. And we've all got our darkness, don't we? That keeps us from the light. But now we get to see it more clearly. Okay? It illumines it. It illumines even the dark. So it's not just this bright light, white glow kind of thing. It helps me see my shadow parts and be less afraid of dealing with them. It illumines the face of God and casts new shadows and new glories on the face of men. So shadows and the opposite, glories. We get to see ourselves in a different light. A lot of us are very hard on ourselves. Self-hatred runs really deep amongst alcoholics and addicts, an inner loathing, if we get honest. And when we are in touch with this light, with this love, it softens that. It makes me acceptable even to my greatest critic, who is who? Myself. Opens that up, reduces it, allows the love of God to come through and to heal. It is a seed stirring to life if we do not choke it. A seed stirring to life if we do not choke it. None of us is a finished product. Each of us is a seed, an experiment is another way of looking at it, wherein as we work the steps remove many of the obstacles. Steps 4 through 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6 steps, half the program is all about what? Removing the barriers to God, removing the barriers to other people, removing the blockages that exist between me and you, me and God, me and my true self. That's the work. That is the work. Removing those obstacles, not out of shame, not out of guilt, but do it out of, it allows for the greater realization of the light which is within. That's what Kelly's saying. Here's a tough word. It is the Shekinah of the soul, comma, the presence in the midst. Shekinah, it's a Hebrew word, means the presence. In Celtic spirituality, they talk about thin places. I think that's saying the very same thing. There are thin places, rivers, mountaintops, deep valleys, caves, where when you step inside them, you feel something. You feel it's a thin place. You ain't going to get this at the mall, most likely, or at the amusement park. Those are heavy places, but a thin place, morning sunrise, evening sunset. We had a sunset the other day here in Texas that would knock your socks off. I mean, it was just so beautiful. It was a thin place. As I watched the sun go down, and I stood there for 5 or 6, 7 minutes, I was out in the street. I don't get a good shot from my house. But I stayed there because I was in a thin place. The spirit, whatever that is, was present in a very, very deep way. So that's the Shekinah of the soul, the place of presence where you can feel God's presence. I've had this at meetings when people really get honest. Not when they're BSing and talking about, frivolous stuff, but when they're talking about deep stuff, when they're talking about their experience of God or their experience of forgiveness, of themselves, of other people. You're in the presence of a teacher at that moment, and you know it. So that's the Shekinah of the soul. A lot of us don't even believe in souls, but our soul is what connects us to life. It's our bodies. It's being who we are. And if the program is about anything, the deeper program, it's about becoming who we're meant to be. That's the phrase I like to use. Are you becoming who you were meant to be? Capable of becoming? That's the challenge. And if I'm in touch with the power, then I get the power, I get the courage, I get the guidance, I get the direction to do exactly that. Not to become somebody else, but to become fully me. And when you become fully you, you're going to manifest God's presence in the world, because God can only do that through you. That's why he has billions of us, and maybe other worlds, who knows, But that's the nature of God. We like to define God so we can control God. No can do, but we can experience. And if we get ourselves out of the way, our false selves out of the way, then God can shine through. Here is the slumbering Christ, stirring to be awakened, to become the soul we clothe in earthly form and action. You might say, here is the slumbering Buddha. Here is the slumbering One, capital O. Here is life slumbering within me. Whatever the sacred is to you, it's within you, but it's asleep. It longs for an opportunity to awaken. That's what we call this a spiritual awakening. Awakening to the spirit, all right? Stirring to be awakened, to become the soul we clothe in earthly form and action. And you're unique, I know we say in 12-step recovery, terminal uniqueness, as if it's a bad thing. And it can be, I understand that. But in another way, it's not. It's a wonderful thing. You are the only you that exists, and I'm the only me that exists. And each of us has an opportunity to become that fully or not. Or not. That's our choice. Last line. And he is within us all. I think I'm just going to quit at that point. There's a lot more in this chapter. We read all of most of a page, but I think you get a sense of what Kelly's about, how he's able to put into words feelings, sensations that are within us all, and he's able to bring them to life. So, A Testament of Devotion, Chapter 1, The Light Within. We'll move on to a couple of other chapters in this series. I think it's going to be fairly short, but I just wanted to introduce you to the guy. There aren't that many really good spiritual writers out there in the world who, especially more modern ones. He died in the 1940s and kind of speaks our language. So heavy stuff. I'm quite well aware of that. Heavy stuff, but it's kind of what the big book is intimating at, that the great reality is within. I just believe if you can come at that great reality, through other writers, other people who've experienced it, don't just limit ourselves to alcoholics and addicts, then we get a feel for it and a realization of it. And most of all, hopefully through the two-way prayer, you get an experience of it. So let's put a wrap on that. I hope this was helpful. If it was, drop me a line. You can write me a two-way prayer at gmail.com. Love to hear from you guys. And if there's a series you'd like us to do here, let me know what it might be. So thank you for listening. If you've made a donation, really helps. So thanks for that. So God bless and keep coming back.